All right, everyone. So we have another video from Crafts Dwarf. This one is called Greed is Good, and it's about Hunter x Hunter. And I'm guessing the themes of greed all throughout the series. Now, normally when you hear the word greed associated with Hunter x Hunter, you think of Greed Island, which I think is a very underrated arc in my opinion. I think a lot of people would say that Greed Island is probably the one arc that Hunter x Hunter was it's the one time where Hunter x Hunter was really all that good, and they basically say it's like the low point of Hunter x Hunter. Now, for me personally, while I will admit that Greed Island may not be the best arc, I still think it's very good, and I don't really consider it a low point. I mean, for me, it's like there's really no low points in any of Hunter x Hunter. It's one of the few series I think that's out there that doesn't really have any what 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 most people would call low points in any series, because I think they're all good. And Greed Island, in my opinion, is very underrated. I think a lot of people kind of like miss what Togashi was probably trying to say with Greed Island. And let's go ahead and watch this video from Kraftsdorf and talk about how greed is good. Question mark. Yeah.
One thing I've
Oh, and as always, guys, links in the description. Make sure to like, share, subscribe. You know what to do. And comment with your thoughts and any videos you want me to watch on this channel. Just tell me where I can find the videos as well as the title of the video itself. Don't leave the actual link because YouTube erases them for some weird reason.
Appreciated about Hunter x Hunter is how ever present its theme of desire is, to the point that even nameless and minor characters have clear, simple, and distinct wants they aim to fulfill through the actions we see them taking. We see such a clear line of desire in Gon's work to get the badge from Hisoka, where Gon comes to realize that he can understand what the fish and birds are thinking based on what they want, to the point that it forms a food chain. The fish went for the fly, the bird for the fish, then Gon for the bird. Similarly, his blind desires would have him taking the role of the fish in the upcoming exchange, where he went for the badge like it were a fly, leaving himself open to Garetta, who went for Gon like a hawk, who, like Gon earlier when watching the fish, had been sitting in the rear waiting for him to move after what he wanted, before Hisoka took advantage of the situation to make off with the most gain. Hunters hunt, and by the rules of the association, they have to chase after something, making it all too fitting when the only one to fail is Killua, a boy too controlled by his family to strive for any desires he might have outside of their domain.
So this is really interesting, what he just said right here. Hunters have to hunt, like they have to want something. And I think that that's very interesting because it does line up with what's going on in the manga now. Oh, by the way, I guess spoilers for the anime and a little bit in the manga, because I am going to be talking about something that happens in the manga. It does explain what's happening now, where you have Gon, who's been sort of pushed out of the story, and Kurapika, I guess you could say, has taken center stage with the succession war. It does kind of make sense because right now Gon doesn't really have a goal. Excuse me. He was even told by Jing, it's like, maybe right now you could take this time to think about what it is you want to do now that you've accomplished what it is you set out to do, which is to he didn't actually say that. I'm adding this in. He just said think about what you want to do now. And I think that it makes sense that, now that he found Jing, he doesn't really have a goal. So I guess it makes sense why he's been kind of written out of the story, and why I do believe Gon will come back, because I do know there's people out there who think that, Gon is, he's never going to come back into the story because there's no real reason to. I don't agree with that. I do think Gon is going to come back, because a lot of people forget Gon is the main character of the story. And while Hunter x Hunter isn't like what you would consider the typical shonen where the main character just has to be front and center in every single arc, that's not really the case. At least that's what Togashi has shown us. But I do think Gon will come back. I do think that once this whole succession war ends, I think that Gon will be brought into the story. Now, whether that has to do with him maybe going after Killua, seeing what's going on with him, or maybe the whole arc surrounding him could be him finding what he wants to do now. Like, does he want to go maybe catch up with Killua, see what's going on with him? Or does he think maybe it's not a good idea because Killua's like got his own thing, he's got his own thing that he needs to do, which is to take care of Aluka from the Zoldyck family. And then of course there's the thing with what was his name, Gyro, because that was something that Togashi did set up when Gon were at was at the city where I forget, I think it was the city where he got to climb the world tree, and where he had to go to the top and meet Jing. I think it was after that where Togashi had that little had the little text box with whatever the narrator says, where he basically hints that yeah, Gon and Gyro are going to meet. So I do think that is going to happen, but whether that's the main motivation for Gon, we'll have to wait and see. I think that I do predict that maybe the arc surrounding Gon will be him trying to find out like what it is he has to do now, and I do think it will be tied into his Nan, because there's nothing that says. I know a lot of people have also said this, that Gon is never going to get his Nan back. I also don't think that's the case. I do think he is going to get it back, and I do think it's going to be tied to who Gon is now, because I do think he has grown up. He has learned from what's happened with him in the past, especially his experiences with Killua and all the adventures that they went on. I think he has learned from that, because remember, like, Nen is tied to a person's like who they are, their identity, their personality. And I do think that Gon's new outlook on life is going to be reflected on his Nen. Now, whether that's a more refined version of his enhancer abilities, or whether he's going to have something completely new, like who knows, maybe he'll be a conjurer, maybe he'll be a manipulator, transmuter, what's the other one? There's another one. Emitter, right? Maybe he could be an emitter, or who knows, some people have theorized maybe Gon can be a specialist, because Togashi did say that someone doesn't have to be born a specialist. They can either be a specialist under certain special circumstances, like with Kurapika, whenever his eyes glow red and whenever his emotions are on high. And he also said that someone can become a specialist later in life, and I don't think he would have put that in unless he had unless it was just for pure lore, just to tell us what it is, or he actually has something to do with that. And right now Gon, right now that he is back to square one, who knows, maybe that's the route that he plans to take, to do with Gon. Again, that's we're just theorizing, we're hypothesizing, but yeah, just wanted to talk about this for a second, and how it does line up again with what's going on now. You know, Gon's being written out of the story, doesn't have a desire, doesn't have anything to chase after, and Kurapika does. That's why I think that the story has shifted to him, because he still has his goal of avenging the Kursa clan and getting the Scarlet Eyes back. Although I do remember someone saying that maybe Kurapika, Leorio, Illumi, Kaluto, and the Phantom Troop, all of them are going to die. Like all of the people on the ship are probably going to die. Even beyond, they're all probably going to die, because they're going to the Dark Continent. Either that, or they're going to die before they even get there, which, I mean, I wouldn't put it past him to do that, because maybe it'll line up with what's probably being what he's probably going to talk about here in this video, about people's greed, and how sometimes excessive greed can like really backfire on you. And I think that that's probably going to be what happens to Kurapika, his greed of wanting to get revenge on the Phantom Troop wanting to get the revenge on Kurapika for killing members of their troop. And I think Illumi and Kaluto are just going to be sort of collateral damage. And yeah, I think that they all were greedy by going to the Dark Continent and seeing if they can mine some of their resources that are available there. And I think that it's all going to end up sort of biting them in the ass, because I think that the only person who might be able to survive that is, because Gon, like, I can see him probably wanting to go to the Dark Continent just to go there, just so we could see it. And maybe that's also what's going to happen with Jing, because he wants to explore, he just wants to discover. And I think that that's something that Togashi probably believes in, and why I think that maybe Jing, other than maybe there's like a story reason for it, I don't think he's going to die. And I think that Gon might make it to the Dark Continent. I don't think he's going to die, in my opinion, because I think that Gon wants to go there just to see it.
his family to strive for any desires he might have outside of their domain. But that is just the impetus, the beginning. Desire is fundamental even in animals. If one has no desires, then they have nothing to reach for. But Hunter x Hunter spends much of its time examining the extremes, that of excessive desire. The examples I will primarily be discussing show
excessive desire, this being a prime example of it. Kurapika too, but this is excessive desire for wanting to get Kite back and then being told no, that's not going to happen, and him just refusing to accept it and just letting his anger take control of him, and well, we all know what happened.
The extremes, that of excessive desire. The examples I will primarily be discussing shown throughout the York New and Greed Island arcs, each of which focus on one of the two main characters who are pushed by the strongest desires among the main four. Because while York New ends with Gon, throughout it's just as much, if not more so, focused on Kurapika. Kurapika's desire is twofold: to avenge his clan by bringing the perpetrators of the massacre to justice, and retrieve their stolen eyes so that he may put them to rest properly. This journey for vengeance and the strength of his desire is something that gives him great power through his Nen. Nen can even mean desire. So in this series of hunters, it is a fitting name for a set of abilities that allow the characters to enforce their will on the world. As such, through putting one's life on the line, it can offer the strongest power of all, short of actual death, allowing a novice Nen user in the form of Kurapika to go toe-to-toe with members of the Phantom Troop, a collection of some of the strongest Nen users we've seen in the series.
Yeah, and
in
this is
Logan, he incites their wrath, pitting
and this is I just want to talk about this for a second, and don't worry, I'm not going to go on another like long tangent, but I do just want to say that this is an example of how because usually in a lot of shonen series you have these characters who are really young, specifically some of the main characters that, you know, they all start off as being really young, and they take advantage of whatever power system is available in the series, whether it's ki or chakra or reishi or nen, and they always like they train for like a couple of months or a year, and they manage to surpass or be able to fight against people who have been doing this for years or decades. And it always just kind of takes me out of the story a little bit, but this is one instance where I think Togashi managed to find that good balance where he does play into the trope, but at the same time he doesn't have it be like so, he doesn't have it be to the level where it kind of takes me out of the story. Like here it does kind of make sense, and not that it doesn't make sense in those other series, it does, but it just it just the way it was done there just kind of does kind of take me out of the story a little bit. But here it makes sense because it is explained that in this universe, like you know, when you are practicing or when you're training your nen, if you make a contract with it, you can severely enhance its power, no pun intended. But yeah, Kurapika made a contract to where he will only use his power against members of the Phantom Troop, and if he uses it against anyone else, well, he'll die. And because of that insane restriction, his nen got bumped up to an insane level, which allows him to be able to compete with members of the Phantom Troop. And yeah, I mean, again, it's but here's the thing: even though he does do that, it's not to the point where he's completely surpassed the members of the Phantom Troop. It's to the point where they can still put up a good fight against them. Like he still needs to be careful. He still needs to actually, you know, like think, like actually have a strategy going into battle. Like he can't just jump into it like it's Dragon Ball fight, or I guess now kind of like it's a Naruto fight, where just because you have like this incredible power, you can just overpower your enemy, and even if they have a strategy to work against you and your ability, it doesn't matter because the power gap is so insane that whatever strategy they come up with, it doesn't matter. And yeah, so just wanted to say that real quick.
He incites their wrath, pitting their desires against one another. The troop operates in York New to steal from the auction house, but with Kurapika's interference, a second goal comes into focus as they aim to get their vengeance against that chained bastard, members conflicting with each other based on the individual weight they have in those desires. What I find interesting to consider about this conflict is how Neon's ability factors in, the poems offering a what if in their words of warning, allowing speculation on what might have been the unfolding course of events had the troop not taken more careful action. What's interesting to note is that while the deaths of Shizuka, Pakinoda and Shalnark are rather set in stone, even the troop members note that if they go after Kurapika, his death won't be so absolute, the vague wording merely stating how he will be bloody by the end of things. While the troop members he'd killed would certainly leave him bloody by the time he was done with them, what I believe the poem to be implying is more evocative of the thematic failure that the characters all desperately fight against, as at the end of it, both sides in the conflict are brought to a halt by their mutual desires to keep their friends from harm. The troop unfalteringly goes along with Kurapika's words to save Crollo, Gon and Killua understanding their pain at losing comrades the most directly, both from seeing it through Nobunaga, and of course, feeling the same way themselves at the idea of losing their comrades. Because at the end of the day, Kurapika doesn't want to sacrifice his friends either. Both sides have their desires, but the troop who couldn't let either their heist or vengeance go lost the most, even if they gained the stolen treasures they did. While Kurapika killed only a fraction of the troop members he might have otherwise, and failed to get the eyes he sought to retrieve, he didn't lose anything either. But in the poems, lack of restraint informs an alternate future where Kurapika kills more of the troop, the blood on his hands being, as I would infer, that of his comrades. To charge into achieving one's desires with no restraint would increase the likelihood of success, but the cost of it would put everything else at risk. And the troop, acting to protect their comrades, showed that restraint first, changing the outcome for all of them. An excessive want for what one desires can be called greed. Some might even say greed is good, and going by that name, Greed Island would be a place where such extreme desire is rewarded. Succeeding in the game can grant just a handful of treasures from an immense selection of wonders. Interestingly,
see, I just want to say something real quick on the whole, greed is good thing.
Would be a place where such extreme desire.
I do think that a little bit of greed is good. I just think that people need to also make sure that they don't let it overtake them. I think that that's when it becomes a problem, because just as with everything, if you have it in moderation, there's nothing wrong with that. Just like, food and water and literally anything else, food and water are things that our body needs, but when you take in too much, it can kill you. And that's why, and I think that greed is the same thing. It's like there's nothing wrong with having a little bit of greed. There's nothing wrong with working to get something that you want. It's just that you have to just know when to keep it in check. I think that it's when people let their greed take over is when it becomes a problem.
Is rewarded. Succeeding in the game can grant just a handful of treasures from an immense selection of wonders. Interestingly, of the primary contenders, Gon, Genthru, and Batra, we come to know exactly what two of these challenges want from the game. The third remains an enigma because it doesn't matter. Where Yorknu explores desires restrained by a want not to lose anything, Genthru's specific wants do not matter. All that matters is that he and his comrades want to win. Everything else be damned.
Also, I do think that people kind of maybe trash on Genthru maybe too much. I think there are probably some people out there who think that Genthru is like he's not really a good villain. I don't agree with that at all. I do think he does work for the story that Togashi was telling in Hunter x Hunter. Now, do I think that or not Hunter x Hunter, but in the Greed Island arc? Now, do I think that he's the best antagonist out of all of them? Hell no, not even close. Again, Meruem, Crollo just dominate him in that category. Like, Genthru is nowhere near as good as those two. But yeah, I also, but that doesn't necessarily mean that he's bad. I don't think he's a bad antagonist. I think he works. I do think he is a good antagonist, just not as good as Meruem or Crollo. Just no.
His greed, his brutal methods and power allowing any others outside of his group to be sacrificed. Even Suzugare's forces cannot stand up to him properly. When Gon hears of the bomber, he's told that the players of the game see him as the epitome of what the game of death wants from its players. Greed Island seemingly rewarding the greed of this man with so few standards. Gon rejects that notion, not because he is Genthru's counterpoint. That role is filled by Batra, who gives away everything he has with the intent to live quietly and humbly with the one he loves. His desire is strong, but ultimately it's not enough, and the love of his life dies before the game can be completed. Much like the 100 exams, Greed Island can only be beaten by someone who wants to complete it, leading to Batra's contradiction. The one who wants to beat it most of all, perhaps even more than Genthru and Gon, is Batra. Yet Batra is not a Nen user. At the end of the day, he could not fulfill his own desires. Nen is a power that enforces one's will on the world for desires, yet Batra is not capable of this ability, paying others to do it for him. And yet those others, as strong as they were not fighting to beat the game or make off with its unique prizes, since those were meant for Batra. They would only walk off with money, something they could not only get anywhere, but as shown, it was something they would get whether or not
They were going to get paid no matter what, yeah.
Willing to offer everything, what Batra had to give was, ironically, worth nothing. The tragedy of his struggle in that no one else associated with the game could ever care as much about beating Greed Island as he did, and thus could never win for the desires of another. Even Gon, the ultimate victor, did not require beating Greed Island to meet his father, and the progress he did make for that goal was a happy accident more than anything. But Gon's desire was pure, to beat the game for the sake of beating it. Again, Gon isn't without his greed, and we see this during the battle against Genthru. At any time he could have doused his opponent in oil and stripped him of his powerful ability, but Gon got greedy for validation and recognition, opting to fight him to put his new skills to work after Genthru insisted that he wasn't worth using Little Flower on. It's a course of action that evokes his battle against Hanzo in the Hunter exam, where he wanted a fair way to challenge him without having an advantage or being condescended to, in spite of Hanzo's overwhelming power. His pure desire still earned him a win, and Hanzo's respect, but it was not on his terms, informing his desires after that to properly earn his license by going against Ahsoka. But against Genthru, it was different, because after fighting to meet that goal...
Oh yeah, I forgot Hisoka's also on the whale ship on his way to the Dark Continent. Well, he's only there because he wants to kill the Phantom Troop and get to kill Crollo. But yeah, I mean, it does kind of suck that he might die because like I know there's probably a lot of people out there who want to see like a rematch between him and Gon, and for him to sort of get his wish of being able to fight Gon when he's been fully trained and he's like a master Nen user. But it seems like that might not happen, which kind of sucks.
Stacking up to Genthru and earning his fear and respect, he was satiated. Against Hanzo, Gon was greedy because his desires could not be reasonably met. But against Genthru, once he got what he wanted, Genthru gave up, rendering the plan unnecessary. But Genthru was greedy. Even seeing and fearing Gon's strength, he took advantage of his naivete, crippling him with the intent to kill so that he could walk away with everything. But in that greed, he underestimated his opponent, who up until then had been fighting for his
greed got the better of him, yeah.
To beat the game. And once he switched back to those gears, he used a plan that could have been put into action at any time.
Yeah, at any time.
Using everything to bring
before he lost his hands and everything.
Of the game's quirks,
well, his left hand, not his. His right hand got injured, but yeah.
And its systems offered, Gon brought Genthru down handily. Genthru turned Greed Island into a game of murder, but Gon refused to stoop to his level, going into the battle with 6 Breath of the Goddess cards prepared just in case. Greed Island was a game where, be it monster or another player, death was a very real possibility, on some level expected by all players. The mechanics even believed to be promoting murder at high levels of play, but after defeating Genthru and getting all 99 cards, the true nature of the game was revealed. One that very much evoked Jing's words of appreciating those little detours. Murder and death might get a player to those last few cards, but they can't steal knowledge of the world those cards came from. Gon played the game as intended, not to greedily reap its rewards and rush to the end, but to enjoy it, seeing much of it, earning the cards through exploring the world his father took part in creating, and as a result he won, having a desire to win, but not an excessive desire that left someone like Genthru just shy of victory.
So I just want to comment on that also, what he just said, real quick.
And death might get a player to those last few cards, but they can't steal knowledge of the world those cards came from. Gon played the game as intended, not to greedily reap its rewards and rush to the end, but to enjoy it.
So that, what he just said right there, I think that is just... I like what he just said right there, because I think it also applies to a lot of people in real life. You know, whenever they buy a game or whenever a new game comes out, it sucks because usually whenever a new game comes out, especially one that a lot of people have been heavily looking forward to, it always ends up getting forgotten about within like a couple of weeks or maybe even a month, because usually a lot of the people, at least I think, in my opinion, and maybe you guys disagree with me on this, I think a lot of people just buy the game because they just want to beat the game. They just want to get from A to B. You know, they just want to get to the finish line. And it kind of sucks because I think that it sort of diminishes a lot of the work that went into making the game, especially if it's something like, let's say, an open world game or an open world RPG, where you've got the main missions, you've got the side missions, but you've also got this large, expansive world that a lot of people could just take their time exploring and really look at a lot of the work that went into went into making the game. And who knows, I mean, you might find things in the game by choosing to explore it and just enjoying it, as opposed to just going through the main missions or even some of the side missions and that's it. And once you've completed all of that, or once, as a lot of people say, once you've platinumed the game, what else is left? I mean, there's still, of course, the actual world that you could go, you can explore, you can look at all the little details that went into making this world. You could just enjoy it for what it is, and if you do that, I think that you'll find that you're enjoying this game, or that you keep going back to this game for like weeks and weeks and weeks, weeks or even months, or who knows, maybe till hopefully until the whole year has gone by and you're still playing the game, because you're actually taking your time to enjoy what the game actually has to offer. But most people just want to get to the end of the game. They just want to finish it just so they could, I don't know, maybe they just want to like check the that name off their list of games that's going to come out that I just want to play and finish, and then they could just move on to the next game. And yeah, maybe they'll come back to it every now and then just to, you know, pass some time. You know, they got some time to kill, I got nothing else to do, so let me just like put this game on and just like move around, maybe do some missions or whatever. Not even do missions, just move around or whatever, and not even with the intent of actually like exploring in the world, but just to pass some time. You know, you go to some locations that you've already been before, you fight some enemies you've already fought before, so you already know like what it takes to take them down. Or maybe you've leveled up to the point where you don't even need to think, you could just like one hit kill, you could just kill them with one hit. And it just sucks, because I think that, again, it kind of diminishes a lot of the work that goes into making these games. Because again, like games like they a lot of work goes into making them, and especially a lot of time, you know, because if you know anything about, you know, the video game industry, or specifically like what people go through to make these games, some people, like, they're so dedicated to working to make sure the game's finished, like they'll even sleep in the studios where they're working on them. Like, they don't even go home. Sometimes they'll go days without seeing a single member of their family, just to be able to get the time to work and manage to meet their deadlines and everything. And it just, yeah, I mean, hopefully that'll change, but it is what it is at this point.
Having a desire to win, but not an excessive desire that left someone like Genthu just shy of victory. I would like to thank my patrons: Brian Nesseth, thanks NitroRad, Dojo32161.
Okay, so this is all those patrons. So again, guys, links in the description down below, and make sure to like, share, subscribe. You know what to do. Comment with your thoughts, and also comment with any video you guys might want me to watch. And make sure to, again, head on over to Craftsource's channel, subscribe, watch his videos. Seriously, he makes some good videos, and just go show them some support. And not just Craftsource, but any content creator we watch here on this channel. So with that being said, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video again, and bye for now.